Well, hello, freedom seekers. I'm back with another weekly update. And guess what? Yes, I am on time this week. It's the first time in 3 weeks now that I'm actually on time. Where the last 2 weeks uh, I schedule these on YouTube to be at a certain time. And then that way it kind of sits there on my YouTube channel, letting people know that I'll be live here at this time. And so I schedule them and then like last week I was 6 minutes late, and so I do everything I can to make that time. And I've even in the past I have scheduled them and then shortly before coming on live I went ahead and bumped it for 5 or 10 minutes later, needing a little more time. And so but this is the first time then in 3 weeks that I've actually been on time. I like to be on time. I don't know about you. I really don't like being late. What is very common with me, though, is I really do push it to the limit, and that I try to get so much done in a half hour or 5 minutes or 10 minutes period of time or a day that I pack so much stuff in there that everything on timelines runs right up tight. And so that when I do these live streams, very often then that I am really busy doing things and taking care of some things right up to the minute before I come online. But this time I thought, I'm going to be ready this week, and I'm going to be on top of it and on time and relaxed and not rushing into it. And so it's like, you're rushing into a meeting or something, and then you feel a little frantic at the beginning. But nonetheless, so here we are. And I usually in these live streams, I'll go ahead and get them started by just chatting a little bit and allowing, because YouTube goes out and puts a notification out to the people who subscribe to my channel and says, hey, Non-Monogamous Mark is live. And so that they have a chance to come on and join us. And so we usually try to give them about 5 minutes to do that. And then we get into the weekly video. And oh my gosh, I really need to get some time to do some video editing, because the live videos, they just are on my channel. And but I have a lot of videos that for the last several months, probably in fact going back to my hike that I took on Vashon Island when I was in Seattle. And that was back in either the late January or the very 1st of February. And I made a video on my hike and had some comments that I made about while on that hike and stuff. And so anyway, I think that's one is the one that's sitting there waiting to be edited. And every video since then that I've made on my phone, it's just been a very busy time. And like I mentioned last week, I'm right now at this point, I'm not doing these videos to, really generate money. And so therefore these videos are something that just have to fit into my time schedule. And, if I really felt like that I could generate the income I need from them in a fairly short order, then I'd maybe put a lot more time and involvement and cover a lot of topics. I mean, I've got hundreds, if not a couple thousand different topics. I've got blogs and papers that I've written and all kinds of things that we would then talk about, everything from the relationships and sex and money and, your health. But mostly this channel, I really do like to dive into relationships and sex. And that's what non-monogamy is all about. But the other things are so important, though, because it doesn't matter, that the relationships and sex that you want to have, if you're not having good health, then the relationships and the sex that you want to have is not going to be there. Same thing with finances. If you're stressed constantly about finances or stretching, your budget out in order to go on dates and put gas in the tank to go visit a lover and things like this, then that's no good either. And so I think that money is an important factor when it comes to our non-monogamous life. And so that I do talk about money, and I talk about, our health, but mostly though, I want to really talk about our non-monogamy and helping you to transition your life to living a non-monogamous life that thrives. I don't know where you're at in your non-monogamous life, and whether you are, like a gentleman that contacted me just a couple of days ago, he's actually been cheating on his wife, and he feels terrible. He feels really bad about that. But she just won't have anything to do with talking about an open relationship. She's very religious and thinks that his sex drive comes from the devil. Well, I experienced that myself, and with my late wife, my late first wife and ex-wife, and I she thought that my sex drive was from the devil, and it wasn't. And so, it's just something that is given as a gift for us to enjoy the pleasure of. And so we want you to enjoy having more pleasure with more people, and not just be limiting yourself to one person to have sex with for your whole life or for the rest of your life. And so that's really kind of the heart of most of the things I'd like to talk about. But, I've got to take care of paying the bills first. And so we're going to do that, and then have less time for me to talk here. But if there are things that you want to ask questions on, then either come on to my live stream, which I try to do these every Monday night, these weekly updates, do them every Monday night, and then you can, and I do them between 8 and 8:30, and I try to get them closer to 8, between 8 and 8:15, and when I get them scheduled. But love to have you come on to the live stream and ask questions and chat with me and have a conversation going on with me as well. And I'd love to have you join us. So at this time, though, let me go and switch over to my screens. I'm going to share my screen with you and switch to the weekly review and update that I have here on my computer. And so, one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is to encourage you to take a chance on your dreams to have more sex with more people. And encouraging you that, then, I told you that for me to transition right now, and that I'm transitioning from an income where I'm trading hours for dollars to building an income online, so that I can travel all around the world or anywhere I want to be, and I'll continue to make money as long as I have access to the internet. And so that's the kind of the life that I'm transitioning to and creating for myself. And that's where then the steps of that transition process really are so similar to what I went through when after 27 years, my monogamous marriage, decided I wasn't willing to live the rest of my life that way, and decided to go ahead and transition my marriage from either being a monogamous married man to being a divorced man, or to being a man with an open relationship. And I prefer going with the choice of an open relationship. But you see, there's only one person in this world that you have charge of and control of, and that is yourself. You don't have charge and control of someone else as much as you'd like to think. Even your kids, you don't have full charge and control of. And the thing is, in our culture, I find that so often women, they get involved in a relationship where the man tries to be in charge and in control of them, because women are not always as dominating and strong as the man. That's not always the case, but oftentimes it is. And so the woman ends up losing herself, or she loses her own identity. And so then what happens, and this is my case, my first wife did not have a strong self-image and a strong personal identity and concept. And so when I went and suggested to her that she have sex with someone else and I have sex with someone else, then that was a big mistake, because I was suggesting what she should do also with her life, instead of just having a conversation with her about what I was interested about doing in my life. And that would be having sex with another woman. And so since I came about it wrong, then she right away, felt like she was backed up into a corner. And so there are 3 steps here that I want to talk about that are really the 3 critical steps. The steps that I'm going through right now myself in transitioning my income. And then those are the same 3 steps that really are involved in transitioning your relationship, wherever it's at. Maybe you already have a non-monogamous relationship, but it's not a liberated relationship. You know, I talk to people all the time in non-monogamous relationships, but they have all of these rules and constructs, and that is how my first wife and I, when we opened our marriage, that's how we had our non-monogamous relationship as well. And so I know how those things work. I know how those things work out very well. And one of the things is that you can get into a non-monogamous relationship and not feel any more satisfaction and pleasure than what you had in a good sex life, maybe before with your wife. If you had a good sex life before. In my case, I did not. But if you have a good sex life with your wife already, then moving into a non-monogamous relationship where you don't go to have liberation, where you really take and instead create all these structures of barriers and things that really cover up your insecurities and things that deal with possessiveness and things of this nature, then what happens is that you end up creating problems for yourself. And so that's why I have this 3-step structure here, because if you follow these 3 steps, and these are, again, the same 3 steps that I'm following in transitioning my income, and that anytime you want to go from point A to point B in your life, then you're going to want to go through these 3 steps. And the first step here then is to reframe your life. Now, reframe your life. What do I mean by that? And that if you think that you're going to take and move into a non-monogamous lifestyle and be the same, then you're fooling yourself. And that you have to reframe your life, and that reframing takes place in your thought processes, in your knowledge and your level of expertise. So for instance, like when my wife and I, when we opened our marriage, then there was this reframing process where we had to gain a lot of knowledge about STIs, because all of our framing had taken place through our religion. And chances are that much of your framing has come to you, even if you're in a non-monogamous relationship already. This is what I have found creates, I'm going to say probably 75% of all the problems in non-monogamy is that people don't reframe their life. They will jump into non-monogamy without going through these 3 steps. And so subsequently, instead of ending up in the 3rd step, being liberated, they end up in non-monogamy, but they still have all the constructs and restraints from monogamy that they drag into their non-monogamous life with them. The insecurities and the possessiveness and just all the things that you haven't dealt with. And so the reframing process really is starts with seeking out some new information and some new knowledge. And so seeking out new information, and you'll have to determine what that means for you, but spend some time to think about what that means. For me, I'm having to seek out new information and new knowledge in building an income through the internet online that is a self-made income. It's not an income that's handed to me then in the form of a paycheck. And so reframing your life starts with what goes on up here in your head, in reframing your thoughts and giving you some knowledge initially to begin with. And then the next step is, and I'm not going to go into, there's a lot more involved in reframing your life than that, and I just don't have time here tonight, but I just briefly want to touch on these 3 steps and just 1 or 2 points on each of the steps. And the next one is to transform your life. Once you reframe your mind and will give you some education and information, then there's the transformation that needs to take place. So for instance, with my wife, when we went to open up our marriage, as I told you, she had a very low self-image. And then when I suggested that she have sex with someone else, it backed her up into a corner. And that really messed with her mind, because to her, that was just a god-awful sin and terrible thing. And that I would even suggest that she would have sex with someone else. What I do with me is up to me, but what I do in suggesting to her, particularly being not a very strong person, and then she's like, no, you're not going to go telling me I should have sex with someone else. And so there was this reframing process. So I had to take and step back. I had to reframe my plan, reframe my thought processes, figure out what I was doing wrong, and then start learning what to do right. And so the reframing process was that whole process there that we went through. My wife then needed a reframing time as well, where she had to step back and I asked her, I says, well, what have I done? Have I done anything that was really harmful to you and harmful to our marriage? And so the part of the reframing process was just allowing information to come in and processing that information. And then the transformation comes along. You see, for myself, then, that was one of the things that my wife, when we started going through this process, before I ever had sex with another woman, that she told me, she says, Mark, you're already a much kinder man. You're becoming nice again. Because you see, in the 27 years of monogamy, I had become where I wasn't as nice of a guy as I was when she met me. And maybe some of you men and women can relate with that. In fact is, one of the things, because I was just so frustrated sexually and pent up sexually, that it actually changed my personality. And that personality came out where I wasn't as nice of a guy as I normally would be. And so, I needed to transform my life. Excuse me. And so I needed to transform my life. And by transforming my life, I needed to return back to where I was that nice guy. I was that loving guy, that was caring and would sit and listen to my wife talk and do these things. And that was a transformation process that had to take place in me. And these are changes that go on internally. That's what transformation is. Because you can't transform someone else. I couldn't transform my wife. All I could do was to transform me. And so that's how it is with me in learning how to have an online income and doing the steps and going through the process and reframing my life to begin with, and then transforming my life is then the changes that I have to go and implement myself. Some of those are about like discipline, for instance, having the discipline to do a particular task on the time that it needs to be done, and not doing them late and things like that. And so these are things that are transformative in nature. And then finally, the last step then is you begin to liberate yourself. But this liberation process is a journey in itself. And that I remember I went to a conference. I had a travel business that I owned, and I went to a conference in the travel business. And at that conference, they always have a trade show where you can go and talk to, people who are in the tour business and the travel business of some area, some way. And so there was a guy there that had a booth, and he was selling adult cruises. Can you imagine that? Where the whole ship is full of people having sex. And so he was there with a booth to promote his adult cruise business. And, I saw him there, but it was kind of like that. If you've ever experienced the first time you ever walked past an adult store, an adult video store. You know, you kind of were wanting to go in there and maybe look around a little bit, but you were just a little afraid to do that, and afraid that somebody might see you go in there. Or what would somebody think if they found out you were in there? And so, you know, all these things are also there. It's all about what you think other people are going to think, you know. And I hadn't yet taken and transformed my life enough to live that liberated life to the point where it's my life. People have to love and care for me for the person I am, that I truly am, not because I hide parts of me from them, not because I put on some false front and keep them from really knowing the real me. And so that's part of the transformation that I had to go through. So the first time that I saw this guy, I didn't want to go talk to him. I felt weird being there, even walking past probably about 40, 35 feet in front of his booth. But seeing him there, you know, and catching my eye, like, interesting. Wow, okay. And then just keep walking. But you see, then it was 4 years went by, maybe 3 years, 3 or 4 years went by. And I was back at that same trade show again, and there he was again with his booth. And in that time, I walked up and I introduced myself, and had a very nice conversation with the gentleman, and I felt comfortable. I felt confident then of being non-monogamous. I didn't care if other people that because there's a lot of people there that knew me in the travel business, you know, because a lot of people in the travel industry were there. And I didn't really care then if anybody saw me talking to this gentleman at the adult travel cruise booth, you know. And so then it was right after that I got invited to go on a cruise, a brand new ship, and it was very first sailing out of Miami. It had been built in Europe and then came across the ocean and was going to be in Miami, and it was just certain people in the travel industry and also the press corps. And so they all got invited on this week-long cruise to really show off this beautiful ship. And on that ship, then this same guy was on that ship as well. And so I went and had another conversation with him. And then it seems like it was probably 6 months later, I was on another cruise again, another by special invite only, where it was what they call an inaugural cruise. And this happened to be out of Seattle, a ship that was doing their first cruise to Alaska. And so I got invited on that. And so then again, this guy was on that cruise also. And so I got a chance to chat more with him. And so I got to know him really well. And we carried on then a friendship for years. I'm friends with him to this day. But there was a real, before I could be liberated, there was a transformation that I had to go through, because I had to come to a place where, you know, I am non-monogamous Mark. And I don't really care who knows that. I'm not monogamous any longer. And so I wanted to start living my liberated life. And that's what I started to do. And so that's what the transformation allowed me to do, is to live that liberated life. And then you will be able to live your liberated life as well. Now, backing up on the reframing part, you see, part of the reframing that had to be done before I ever opened my mouth and made any comments to my wife was I had to come to that place of realizing, okay, this could mean that I'd be divorced. But see, the thing is that our society, the frame that they put around marriage has got to be forever, and you're a total failure. You're just a terrible person if you've been divorced. Of course, 50% of marriages end in divorce. And so obviously there's 50% of the people that have gone through that, and depending upon their own personal reframing, some people I know, I have coached with people where their reframing is that it's the world's most awful thing that can ever happen to them. But you see, I coach people that we turn your breakdowns into your breakthroughs. And a divorce can become one of the most wonderful things to ever happen to you. You see, but we find we're so attached to things like money that, oh my gosh, because I was there. My wife and I own businesses together, and if I get a divorce, then it's going to wreck and ruin our businesses, and financially it could ruin me. And I was there. But we're so attached to that, we don't really we sacrifice the life that we would love to live because of our attachment to something like money. And so, there's things that are much more valuable than money. In my life, the last 13 years, prior to 13 years ago, I was making six figures every year. I was making $30,000 to $50,000 a month on the average month. And so that was in my monogamous days. And then things changed after I became non-monogamous. Had nothing to do with me being non-monogamous, had to do with the state of Washington changing some regulations during the recessionary economy. And those regulations, when they were changed so that the state could raise more tax money, I couldn't comply with. And so they told me I was going to have to go out of business. And being during the recession meant that I lost millions of dollars. But, again, if you're really attached to all that money, see, your life can be every bit as joyful and lovely and wonderful. Now, at first, when I lost all my money, I thought, because I had just opened my marriage, and I thought, well, great, what woman is going to want me now, broke, And you know what I found out is that became a beautiful way of screening women out who love me for the man I am, not for the money that I had before. Because that was my wife. She loved me for my money. And when the gravy train came to an end, that's when she decided to divorce me. And our divorce had nothing to do with us being non-monogamous. It had all to do with the fact that I ran out of money. And that's when she figured that it was time to get off the gravy train. She hadn't worked in over 20 years, and she finally suddenly had to find a job and go to work and make some money. And so, for me then, this is where the transformation comes into place, where I go through these changes myself internally so that I can become a better person for me, not for her or anybody else, but totally for me. And so I've enjoyed that non-monogamous life now for 13 years. I haven't had the money that I did 13 years ago. I'll get back there and I'll have it again. But, I have known some years that were pretty well impoverished and not knowing how I'm going to really even make it through the year and pay the bills and so forth, But yet some of those years were so rich and beautiful and wonderful because of the relationships that I had and that I developed. And these are women who then loved me for me. And so let's go ahead and get on with then our report here and give you that weekly update and move on right here to start where we always do every week. And that is going over the overriding desire. And so you want to do these same steps for yourself, you see. And so the overriding desire for me is to create an ongoing online income of $5,000 a month, what I call a sustainable income. And then Kat and I are working on creating the online non-monogamous relationships academy. Those are the two big things that we're working on. And so that's the overriding desire. And so you want to make sure you write down your overriding desire. And just like where I come here every week to do this little weekly update, then you want to make sure that you are looking at that and spending time really evaluating that and thinking about that every single week as well. So let's evaluate whether I passed or I failed on last week's focus. And so I said that my last week's focus, first of all, there are 4 different things that I listed out. And so one was my high impact partnership and smart video revolution training. And I'm going to give myself a failure on that because I didn't do a single thing in any of that training at all. As I mentioned, last week, in the last week's video, it was going to be a short video, or excuse me, it was going to be a short week because I was going to be going camping for 4 days, and I did. I went camping on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those I normally take 1 day a week off, which is Thursday, and so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are always work days for me. And so that meant that last week I had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to get a lot of work done. And so some things just didn't get done. So then the next thing then down the list, then video platform marketing agency training. And that's a training program that I'm involved with Paul Pona. And I give myself a fail because I didn't do anything on that training program last week at all. The next one is week 3 of 12 weeks of magnetic mindset certification training. And I'm happy to say that, yes, I did get that done and accomplished. And so I give myself a pass on that. And so, as I said, though, you're going to want to do the same kinds of things. Is that every week, sit down and say, okay, what's my focus this week? What am I working on this week? And then you learn from each week as well. And so then the last thing is to build my online stores. My online store that I got started on, the homenudist.com. And I give myself a failure on that because I didn't do anything on that as well. And just had too many, not enough hours in the week. And so, but and that's what I started to realize that, and this is the importance of this process every single week, where you sit there and you give yourself a pass or a fail. And why is it that I'm a fail? You see, there's a very well-known fact that says that we all think that we can get a lot more done in a short period of time than what we can. And then we all think that we can't possibly get accomplished the things we can in the long run. And so because of that, it's kind of like it's flipped, we just don't see the possibilities, like, are you kidding? Make $20,000 next year a month? Like, wow, I'm not even making $100 a month right now online, but make $20,000 a month next year, you see. And so it's easy to be able to say, no, I can't do that, while at the same time then trying to take on too much every short period of time, which is every week. And I'm certainly guilty of taking on too much every week. But as far as the long range, though, I got that down. But people kind of, so often they start to think that, no, I just can't accomplish those long range things then. So let me talk about my accomplishments for last week then. And so again, that's the same process that you want to go through for yourself. So my accomplishments, I worked my way through 103 pages of the Magnetic Mind training workbook from start to end. That was the workbook that I have for my what I'm doing with my coaching business. And it's called a Magnetic Mind training, learning a lot of things about how the brain functions and how to help people to rewire the brain. And so the manual for that, the workbook, is 103 pages long. And so one of the things that I decided I would do when I go camping is that I would take that with me and I would read it from start to end. And I did that last week, and I was really excited about that and felt really good about what I learned from that as well. Another accomplishment is that I began training on my new programs. And began training on a new, that was my new program where I'm building the online stores. And so I gave myself a failure up a few moments ago because I said I didn't get anything done. But yes, that's not true too, because on Monday and Tuesday, I took and spent some time each day to do some training on that program and building my online store. And so just being able to begin and get going with that, I felt really good. That was a good accomplishment. And see, that's another thing here, is that you do want to pat yourself on the back for the small accomplishments every week, because it really is. It's the small things that you get done every week that makes a huge difference at the end of the year. So then another accomplishment here is to read about, I read about 1/3 of the book, .com Secrets, and Take Secrets, which I took about 30 pages of notes in doing that. And so the .com Secrets is a book that a gentleman named Russell Brunson has written that talks about the secrets of building a business on the internet. And so I went through about 1/3 of that book and have made detailed notes and ended up making about 30 pages of handwritten notes on that. So I felt really good about that. And then lastly, if you've been following me not last week, but the 2 weeks previous of that, 2 days of each of those weeks, I ended up having prostate issues that were very painful, kept me up at night so I couldn't sleep, and basically knocked me out of having 2 days of work that I couldn't get done. And so I started looking at some natural remedies and things of this nature, studying some things. What do I need to do? And I have one thing that I'm sad to report is that I've had to give up drinking a little bit of coffee for a while, just temporarily. But because I love my coffee, and I don't drink a lot of it, but I typically drink at one, sometimes maybe 2 cups a day, and over a course of a week, maybe anywhere between 8 and 10 cups a week. Which again, that's not a lot of coffee, but yet by some people's standards, it's not. But I'm a coffee snob, and I mean, I used to be a coffee roaster in Seattle. And Seattle's the coffee capital of the world, and I love my coffee. And so I found out that that's one of the things that I could do to help my pain that I was having from my prostate. And so I go ahead and gave up my coffee for a while. And so last week I wasn't sick all week because I was watching my diet, and that really did help a lot. And so those were the accomplishments that I felt that I got done last week that were good. Now, were there any breakdowns and breakthroughs? And yes, the breakdown was simply if there was too much that I didn't get done, too many fails on my weekly focus. And so that was the breakdown to me. That the weeks, they're going by so fast right now. I cannot believe how fast the weeks are going. We went camping last week, and in fact, my play partner, she was disappointed then that she didn't get a chance to, because we tried playing once every week, and she was disappointed that we didn't have a play date last week because I went camping. And she says, "Well, didn't you just go camping?" And it's like, yes, I did 4 weeks ago. Really? It was that long ago? 4 weeks ago? It just seems like it was a week ago. And she's right. The time is going so fast, it seems, that the weeks just fly by. But you see, that's also the important part of having a structure for yourself like this. Whether you're trying to take and accomplish and having an open marriage or a more liberated, non-monogamous life, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, you want to have a structure here to keep you moving along, because every week can go by, week after week after week, and before you know it, a year has flown by and you haven't made any headway at all. Yeah, I've been guilty of that myself. And so I really think that that's my breakthrough this week, is to really understand that as long as every week I'm doing everything I can and making some progress every week, then I'm going to be way ahead at the end of the year than where I was at the beginning of the years. And so even though it seems like that things aren't getting accomplished, like I didn't complete any of my training last week. Didn't get my the homenudist.com store built last week, so I didn't really accomplish that. But yet, step by step, I made some progress on those things. And making some progress on those things is what gets the accomplishments made. And so if you do just a little bit every week, then that's really what counts. And then not give up. Just keep doing it a little bit every week. And so then focuses for this coming week. Let's go into that then for you. The first focus for this coming week, and because I learned back on my breakdowns and breakthroughs that I'm not going to try to bite off as big of a chunk this week, and that I really want to take and accomplish and pass. And so one focus is to build my online store. Now, no, I'm not going to probably get it done this week, but I'd like to actually be able to get some products loaded into my store so that it is online, and but not completed. So that's one of my focuses this week. I'm going to be doing week 4 of the 12-week Magnetic Mind certification training. And so I'm going to stay on track with that, because that's something that if I just get 1 week behind on that it's really hard for me then to catch up. And so I'm going to stay on track with week 4 of the Magnetic Mindset. This is something that my coach and my mentor are 2 different people, and I pay them both to work with me, to work, I guess, help me to keep moving things along. And so my coach and my mentor have created this 12-week program, and there's a group of us that are going through this program. And so this is week 4, and I'm going to be hanging in there with that and staying up with that. And then get a favorable resolution in my Allstate insurance lawsuit. Yeah, that's going to be done this week. And that kind of drug me down today. And I spent most of my day focused on that today. And then you see, I had a car accident 4 years ago. I was rear-ended by a truck and trailer. They had Allstate insurance. It was clearly his fault. They got cited on the site by the state patrol officer. He admitted guilt at the time. And so all those kinds of things. But boy, Allstate insurance is not, in fact, they apparently have a reputation of being the badasses when it comes to, now if you're their customer, then they'll take great care of you. But if you are not their customer, then they're going to fight you tooth and nail. So I've been fighting this now for 4 years. They haven't paid a medical bill yet. They haven't paid, they reimbursed me. My vehicle was totaled. They reimbursed me for the cost of my vehicle, but they haven't paid any of the medical bills. They haven't taken and covered any of my lost, the things that I've lost over the last 4 years because of this accident. I to continue to have them paying from it to this day. There's things that I can't do now, and things I'll never do. I mentioned last week that I'm selling my 35-foot Greyhound bus is converted into a motorhome. And the reason why I have to sell that is because I can no longer drive it. I just am not able to maneuver with my shoulder injury that I had in that accident. And they came out with an offer today for $11,400. And it's like, oh, you've got to be kidding. But we go to court on Friday. And so that's why things are heating up now. They also had to send us their medical experts that they hired. They paid thousands of dollars to this medical expert to go through and review all my medical records. I mean, they went back and reviewed my medical records, my personal medical records, long before this accident. And the way that they're painting me is just totally, it was enough to get me a little depressed today. But so anyway, it's all coming to an end on Friday, and I'm really going to be in there I've got a lot of work to do on that this week, and meet with my attorney then on Thursday before we have our day in court on Friday. And so in fact, it's funny now, because we've had to postpone this stuff because of coronavirus, but now we're doing all this stuff over Zoom, which is great, because my court is in Seattle and I'm here in Ventura, California right now at this time. And so we're able to just do everything over Zoom, and that suits me just fine. But so anyway, I'm looking forward to this week, having that kind of all wrapped up and wherever it lands. But I want the most favorable resolutions that I can have possible, but not too favorable. I mean, I'm not taking them to the cleaners. I mean, I could have asked them for couple $100,000 for this injury. And I didn't. And I told him from the start that I had no interest in getting rich off this or making some attorney, personal injury attorney rich off of this. And then for 2 years, they jerked me around because I wasn't even going to hire an attorney. But they jerked me around for 2 years. And I finally figured out that the only way that I'm going to be able to get anything proper resolution with Allstate is by, unfortunately, having to hire an attorney, which means then the attorney makes 50% of whatever my judgment comes through on. And but that's how these things work. And I ended up having to hire an attorney, and that's been now 2 years in the works. And so we are finally getting our day in court now this week. And the thing with, as I was saying, with Allstate, they are known to, like, if they get a big, huge award that's against them, then they don't pay it, they appeal it, and they'll keep going for as much as 10 years before they ever pay a dime out on something. They just, in the industry, you go talk to doctors, you go talk to lawyers who about Allstate insurance, and they'll tell you that, yeah, it's the worst company to try to get any kind of reasonable settlement situation from at all, unless you are their customer. If you're their customer, they'll take good care of you. If you're not their customer, good luck. And so anyway, my attorney and I took the position that we weren't going to go for any huge, large settlement. We're just doing something that's very minimal and very reasonable. I mean, I'm asking for $50,000, which is very minimal. And today we lowered that to $40,000. That if they would settle before we go to court, which for the pain and all that I have lost, my RV alone was $50,000 that I've now got for sale for $12,000. And so anyway, so that's a focus of mine this week. That's going to take a lot of my time this week as well. And so I'll get done what I can do on the other items, but that's going to be how my week goes this week. And so with that, then, we're going to go ahead and look to wrap this video up. And I just ask you that if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, go ahead and subscribe to my channel by clicking that subscribe, and then a little bell comes after that so that you'll be notified when we go live in the future. And then also go ahead and give the video a like and comment down in the comment section. And then if you want to take and hear more from us, get on our email list, which down in there in the description is the email, the little link. You can click on that link and it'll take you over so you can subscribe to our email list. So thanks a lot. Have a great week yourself. And I'll be back here next week between 8 and 8:30 and let you know how things are my week went and how next week is going to shape up as well. So thanks a lot, then. Have a great week.